A tiger cub, a massive python, a lone gorilla. A playful chase turns deadly ambush. An unexpected hero charges from the acacias. But the tiger parent's reaction to his valor? Utterly speechless. What truly happened? The African sun, a molten gold disk, was just beginning its ascent, painting the vast savanna in hues of amber and rose. Dewdrops clung to the tips of the long, resilient grasses, sparkling like a million tiny diamonds scattered across an endless green-gold carpet. Scattered acacia trees, their iconic flat tops stark against the awakening sky, cast long, skeletal shadows that rippled with the gentle morning breeze. The air was crisp, carrying the clean scent of damp earth, wild herbs, and the distant, musky aroma of a land teeming with life. Herds of wildebeest and zebra moved like slow rivers in the distance, their forms still softened by the dawn light. It was in this tranquil, ancient landscape that Raja, a tiger cub of barely 3 moons, took his first adventurous steps of the day. His fur, a vibrant tapestry of orange densite with bold, black stripes, already hinted at the magnificent predator he would become. But for now, his bright blue eyes, wide with an insatiable curiosity, saw only a world of wonder. He was a bundle of clumsy energy, his oversized paws stumbling occasionally as he mimicked the low, stalking posture he'd seen his mother, Shanti, adopt. His current quarry was a flitting, iridescent blue starling, its calls a taunting invitation. Shanti watched him with a soft, rumbling purr vibrating deep in her chest. Her massive frame was relaxed, yet every fiber of her being remained attuned to her surroundings. Nearby, Sheru, Raja's formidable father, lay in the dappled shade of a sprawling acacia, his head resting on his enormous paws, eyes half closed. He appeared to be dozing, but the slight, almost imperceptible twitch of his ears indicated he was aware of every rustle in the grass, every distant call. Raja, emboldened by his parents' seemingly languid presence and mesmerized by the starling's aerial dance, pounced and tumbled, each playful maneuver taking him further from their immediate protective aura and deeper into the taller, untrodden grasses near a dense thicket. Shanti let out a soft chuff, a gentle summons, but it was lost to Raja, whose entire world had narrowed to the chase. Beyond the deceptive calm of the sun-drenched clearing where Raja played, another hunter was stirring. This one moved not with boisterous energy, but with a silence as profound as the earth itself. Coiled within the cool, shadowy interior of an abandoned warthog burrow, camouflaged by a curtain of tangled roots and fallen leaves, lay an African rock python. It was a primeval creature, thick as a man's torso and nearly twice the length of Sheru himself. Its scales, a complex mosaic of dull browns, muted olives, and shadowy grays, were a perfect imitation of the parched earth and dried vegetation, rendering it virtually invisible to the untrained eye. The python had been dormant for days, digesting its last meal, but now, a primal hunger was uncoiling within its massive body. It tasted the air with a flick of its forked tongue, sensitive chemoreceptors picking up a symphony of scents. Most were familiar, uninteresting. But then, a new scent signature drifted on the breeze, faint, but undeniably the tender, inexperienced scent of young prey. Slowly, with infinite patience honed over countless hunts, the python began to move. It flowed rather than slithered, its powerful muscles propelling it forward with an eerie grace, displacing not a single blade of grass unnecessarily. It navigated through the dense undergrowth, its belly scales gripping the earth, its lidless eyes fixed on the general direction of the enticing scent. It wasn't driven by malice, only by the ancient, cold imperative of survival. The tall grasses, which to Raja were a playground, were to the python a hunting blind, a perfect screen for its deadly approach. Each rustle of the wind, each chirp of a cricket, served to mask its subtle advance, drawing it ever closer to the unsuspecting tiger cub. The sun climbed higher, but a cold shadow was stretching towards Raja. Raja, having finally given up on the elusive starling, had found a new fascination, a dung beetle, laboriously rolling its precious sphere. He was crouched low, tail twitching, every instinct of a budding hunter focused on this miniature drama. He was so engrossed he didn't register the subtle shift in the shadows behind him, nor the almost imperceptible parting of the tall grass. The python struck with the shocking speed of a released spring. One moment, Raja was a playful cub, the next, an immense, scaled body had erupted from the camouflage, jaws agape. The fangs, sharp and recurved, were not for venom, but for purchase. They sank into Raja's flank, not deep enough to be fatal, but firm enough to anchor him as the python's true weapon came into play, its crushing coils. Before Raja could even fully process the searing pain, the first loop of the serpent's body was around his small torso. A sound tore from Raja's throat, a high-pitched, terrified squeal that was brutally cut short as the pressure mounted. He thrashed, his small claws scrabbling uselessly against the unyielding muscle, his world suddenly a terrifying prison of suffocating pressure and blinding panic. The sound, though brief, was enough. Sheru's head snapped up, the lazy demeanor vanishing in an instant. Shanti was already on her feet, a guttural, ferocious roar ripping from her chest as she pinpointed her cub's distress. They charged, two streaks of orange and black fury, covering the distance in heartbeats. What they saw made their predatory hearts lurch with a primal fear they seldom knew. Raja was enveloped, his small form rapidly disappearing beneath the tightening bands of the enormous serpent. Sheru, bellowing with rage, lunged, attempting to hook his claws into the python, but the serpent's coils were wrapped too tightly, too close to Raja's fragile body. Any direct attack risked crushing their cub further. Shanti circled frantically, her roars a desperate plea and a furious threat, her eyes wide with a maternal anguish that was terrifying to behold. They pawed, they snarled, they bit at the air, but the python, a relentless, emotionless constricting machine, only tightened its grip, Raja's struggles growing weaker with each passing second. Not far from the unfolding tragedy, within a sparse grove of acacia trees that fringed the open grassland, Kojo, a silverback gorilla of immense size and venerable age, had been methodically stripping bark from a young acacia, his powerful jaws working with quiet efficiency. His fur was a deep, lustrous black, except for the striking saddle of silver that adorned his broad back, a testament to his maturity and former status as a dominant leader of a troop that had long since been relocated by conservation efforts. Now, he roamed alone, a solitary, contemplative giant in a world that was not entirely his own, yet one he knew with an intimate, instinctual familiarity. Raja's piercing shriek, followed by the immediate, thunderous roars of his parents, sliced through Kojo's morning routine. He froze, his dark, intelligent eyes, usually placid, instantly sharpening with alertness. He raised his massive head, nostrils flaring, trying to decipher the nature of the commotion. The sounds were not those of a typical hunt, they were saturated with a raw, desperate panic that spoke of something far more dire. Kojo moved to the edge of the acacia grove, the dappled sunlight playing across his powerful shoulders. From this slightly elevated vantage point, he could see the scene clearly, the thrashing, multi-patterned knot of python and cub, the two adult tigers, magnificent in their powerless fury, circling the life and death struggle. He had witnessed countless acts of predation on the Savanna. It was the brutal, unwritten law of this land. His initial instinct, honed by years of survival, was to remain an observer, detached. This was not his troop, not his concern. Yet, something in the tableau held him captive. Perhaps it was the cub's weakening cries, a universal sound of distress that transcended species. Or perhaps it was the sheer, unadulterated anguish in the tigress's roars, a sound that resonated with a forgotten chord deep within his own memory of family and loss. He watched as the python squeezed, relentlessly, methodically. The cub's movements became fainter. Kojo's brow furrowed. A low rumble started deep in his chest, a sound of indecision, of a gathering internal storm. The law of the wild was clear, but today, something within Kojo felt a powerful urge to defy it. The internal debate in Kojo's mind was brief but intense. Then, with a resolve that seemed to emanate from the very core of his being, he moved. He didn't roar a challenge, not yet. Instead, he stepped out from the cover of the acacia trees, a hulking, dark silhouette against the bright savanna, and began to walk towards the desperate scene with a deliberate, ground-eating stride. His immense arms, rippling with muscle, swung loosely by his sides. Sheru and Shanti, consumed by their frantic attempts to save Raja, were momentarily stunned into silence by the sudden appearance of this unexpected, colossal figure. Their ears flattened, and low, warning growls rumbled in their chests. Was this a new threat? A scavenger drawn by the sounds of a kill? They tensed, ready to defend their cub even from this new, unknown danger. Kojo ignored them. His focus was entirely on the python, which, in its single-minded constriction, seemed oblivious to his approach. As he drew closer, Kojo broke into a lumbering charge, his massive feet pounding the earth. Now, the roar came, a deafening, explosive sound, a primal declaration of intent. He beat his chest with his cupped hands, a rapid, booming tattoo that reverberated across the grassland, a display of sheer power and intimidation that could make even the bravest predators pause. He reached the python in seconds. Without hesitation, Kojo lunged, his enormous hands, fingers like thick iron bands, seizing the python's thick, muscular body. He didn't try to bite or claw, his strength lay in his incredible grappling power. He gripped a section of the snake near where it was most tightly coiled around Raja and pulled, his feet digging into the earth for leverage. The python, rudely interrupted, reacted instantly. Its head, a wedge of cold fury, snapped around towards this new aggressor, its black eyes glittering. It hissed, a sound like air escaping a punctured bellows, and tried to shift its coils, perhaps to include Kojo in its deadly embrace. But Kojo was relentless. He pulled again, grunting with the enormous effort, the muscles in his arms and back bunching like knotted ropes. The python's grip was incredibly strong, its body a living cable of constricting power. For a moment it was a terrifying stalemate, the silent gorilla and the silent snake locked in a battle of pure strength, with the tiny, fading life of Raja hanging precariously in the balance. The tiger parents watched, frozen in a mixture of fear, disbelief, and a dawning, incredulous hope. Kojo dug his heels in deeper, his entire body a testament to focused power. He let out another guttural roar, less of a challenge and more of a raw exertion, and gave a mighty, twisting wrench. The python's coils, though incredibly strong, were not designed to withstand such a direct, targeted assault from a creature possessing Kojo's sheer upper body strength. Slowly, agonizingly, a section of the snake began to uncoil. A small, furred flank, then a tiny paw, became visible. With another powerful heave, Kojo managed to loosen a significant portion of the python's grip. Raja, limp and barely breathing, slipped from the deadly embrace and tumbled onto the flattened grass. He lay there, a small, striped heap, his sides heaving shallowly. The python, its concentration broken and its prey lost, now recognized Kojo as a formidable threat. It might have attempted a retaliatory strike, but Kojo maintained his grip, shaking the section of the snake he held with a violence that would deter any further aggression. Defeated, or perhaps simply deciding the fight was no longer worth the effort, the python began to retreat. It unraveled the rest of its coils from around where Raja had been and, with surprising speed for its size, slithered into the tall, concealing grasses, disappearing as silently as it had arrived. Kojo stood for a moment, chest heaving, watching the spot where the python had vanished. He then turned his gaze to Raja, who let out a faint, mewling cry. Shanti, breaking from her stunned paralysis, was the first to reach her cub, nudging him frantically, licking his fur. Sheru followed, his earlier aggression replaced by a bewildered awe as he looked from his recovering cub to the massive, silent gorilla. Kojo didn't linger. He offered no gesture, sought no acknowledgement. With a final, profound look at the tiger family, he turned and walked back towards the acacia grove, his broad, silvered back receding into the shadows, leaving behind a scene of impossible rescue. Later that morning, Daniel, a seasoned senior ranger with eyes that had witnessed decades of Savanna drama, and Tariq, his younger, equally keen-eyed assistant, were on a routine patrol in their battered but reliable Land Rover. They were miles from the site of the earlier incident when Daniel, scanning the horizon with his binoculars, paused. "Hear that, Tariq?" he murmured. Faintly, on the wind, came the distressed, agitated roars of adult tigers, not hunting calls, but something more unsettled. "Sounds like trouble, Danny," Tarek replied, already reaching for the radio to log their deviation from patrol. "Let's check it out." They navigated the vehicle carefully through the undulating terrain, the engine a low rumble against the vast silence of the plains. Cresting a small rise, Daniel brought the rover to a halt. Below them, perhaps 100 yards away, was a scene that made both men exchange puzzled glances. A tigress, Shanti, was anxiously tending to her cub, Raja, who looked shaken but alive. The male tiger, Sheru, stood guard, but his attention seemed divided, his gaze repeatedly flicking towards a nearby acacia grove. "Looks like the little one had a close call," Daniel observed, his voice low. "But what with? No sign of lions, no hyenas." He raised his binoculars again, slowly sweeping the area around the tigers. The grass was heavily disturbed, churned up in a way that spoke of a significant struggle. Then he saw them, the unmistakable, S-shaped tracks of a very large python. "Whoa," he breathed. "Big rock python. Kid's lucky to be alive." Tarek, meanwhile, had disembarked and was cautiously examining the ground nearer to where the struggle had clearly taken place. "Daniel, come look at this," he called out, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Python tracks, yes, but look here. These aren't tiger prints. They're huge. Knuckle walkers." Daniel joined him, his brow furrowed. There, pressed clearly into the soft earth, were the massive, distinct prints of a large gorilla. Back at the ranger outpost, a collection of sturdy tents and a corrugated iron shed that served as their office, Daniel and Tarek recounted their findings. The small common room, filled with the smell of brewing coffee and maps tacked to the walls, fell silent as they spoke. "A gorilla?" Sergeant Mwangi, a grizzled veteran with a no-nonsense attitude, scoffed, stirring sugar into his mug. "Out on the open plain, tangling with a python to save a tiger cub. Daniel, the sun must have gotten to you." "The prints were clear, Mwangi," Daniel insisted, unrolling a sketch he'd made of the site. "Python tracks all over the place, tiger tracks, and right in the middle of it all, unmistakable gorilla prints. Large ones. Silverback, I'd wager. And a few strands of coarse black hair that definitely didn't come from a cat or a snake." Tarek chimed in, the cub was alive, clearly just been through hell. The mother was all over it. The only way that cub survives a python that size is if something intervened. Something big. Something strong. Skepticism warred with the ranger's respect for Daniel's experience. It was an outlandish theory. Gorillas were predominantly forest dwellers, though solitary males were sometimes known to venture into woodland savanna mosaics. But to actively intervene in a predator-prey struggle involving completely different species? It was unheard of. Yet, the evidence, however circumstantial, was compelling. The story began to circulate in hushed tones around the outpost and eventually reached the ears of local trackers and a few dedicated researchers. Raja, the tiger cub, made a full recovery, albeit with a new wariness around tall grass. And Kojo, unseen but undeniably present, began his transformation into a local legend, the Savanna Phantom, a silent guardian whose motives remained as mysterious as his fleeting appearances. The Savanna, a realm governed by the stark and often brutal arithmetic of survival, occasionally permits moments that defy all its known laws. Kojo's intervention was one such moment, an act of breathtaking audacity that resonated far beyond the immediate lives he had touched. It wasn't a calculated move for territorial gain, nor a defense of his own kin. It was something else, something that stirred a profound sense of wonder in those who pieced together the tale. In a world where interspecies conflict is the norm, where the struggle for existence dictates a near-constant vigilance against fanged, clawed, or constricting death, Kojo's choice stood as a towering anomaly. He, a creature of immense power, had wielded that power not for dominance, not for sustenance, but for an act of selfless, unbidden mercy. He had risked injury, expended precious energy, for a creature entirely unrelated to him, a cub belonging to a species that could, under different circumstances, be a competitor or even a threat. This was not learned behavior, it was a choice, born from an impulse that transcended the ordinary programming of instinct. The rangers, the trackers, all who heard the story, were left to ponder the depths of consciousness that might exist within these magnificent animals. Kojo, the solitary silverback, became more than just an animal, he became a symbol of an unexpected, almost sacred courage, a fleeting glimpse of a compassion that the wild rarely, if ever, reveals so plainly. The incident left an indelible mark on the human observers, a reminder that the natural world still held mysteries that could humble and inspire in equal measure. Kojo's act of valor defies simple explanation. What do you believe drove him to such extraordinary heroism? Comment below with respect if his courage moved you. Have you witnessed an animal act in an unexpectedly heroic way? Share your story. If you believe the wild still holds profound wonders, please like, subscribe, and share this incredible tale.